All right. Welcome back to CS196, everyone. Should be an exciting lecture today. Let's go ahead and get straight into the slides here. Let me just get my windows all set up. Okay. All right, let's get this started. So, welcome back to CS196. Today, we are going to start off by talking about what we've done so far in the course because we are officially at the midpoint. We are at week 8 in the semester. So this is kind of symbolizing a little bit of a shift in the material that we're going to be covering in this class, and also the recent lectures have been a little bit more of like a separation between what we'll be doing for the rest of the semester from what we've been doing beforehand. And yes, there is a change in background. I'm currently at home for a couple days, so a little bit of a different setting here, but let's talk about what we've done so far. So we've talked about some developer tools. So these are, things like Bash, Git, tips and tricks for debugging, tips and tricks for Googling, various like very directly computer science related topics such as like how to program in Python, what are regular expressions, how do you consume a RESTful API, things like that. And from here on, starting on Thursday, we're going to be covering the Rust programming language and the many things that go into that. But recently, we've just kind of threw in some of these professional development lectures. So today, we're going to be going over how to get an internship. Last lecture, we had a feature from IMC. And of course, the centerpiece of this course is project experience. This will help you a lot in rounding out your resumes and getting some experience on there very early as a freshman. So, what is today's lecture going to be about? Well, it's going to be about how do you get an internship. You want an internship super badly. How do you go about doing it? Well, from start to finish, we're going to be covering the process here in this lecture, and I'm going to try and give all the advice that I could possibly give throughout. So, first and foremost, before you go off and get an internship, you have to establish the reasons to why you even want one in the first place. And so, what are some reasons why you should want to have an internship under your name? Well, first thing is that, of course, you get some experience out of it. This will make getting other jobs and other internships a lot easier because employers do like to see relevant experience on your resumes and relevant experience when you're actually interviewing for a position. That's fairly self-explanatory. The knowledge, of course, internships are there so that way you can learn a lot. And, the knowledge that you'll be learning in these internships are not really the kinds of things that you'll be learning in a computer science degree or in the classes in the CS curriculum. In an internship, you'll be learning very directly industry-related topics that you won't really see in a computer science degree. So you will learn a tremendous amount. Money. Of course, we have to talk about this. Internships pay very well. And why is this important? Well, you can use it to pay off some college debt. Many of you guys are accumulating very large amounts of college debt. You can use it to pay your rent or your tuition if you want to avoid going into debt. And of course, you can always invest into the future, investing financially or, whatever reason that you might want some money for yourself. Internships pay very well. You can see them starting around $20 an hour all the way to, even crazy high things such as $70 an hour. So internships pay extremely well. And finally, this is the most important part of an internship. This is why you should want to get these internships for yourself. Return offers. Companies aren't just giving these internships just for fun to give you some money and some experience for nothing. What they get out of it is the fact that they want you to work for them full time in the future when you graduate. So, this is the most important part of getting an internship. Being able to get a return offer to either continue interning there or once you graduate, work there full time as a full time employee. So before I go into, giving a bunch of advice and steps on, how you might want to go about getting an internship, I should probably establish a little bit of credibility first. Like, who am I? I haven't really introduced myself yet. Why should you guys even, trust what I'm saying here? Well, uh, I'm a computer science and linguistics major here, December 2021. I first started interning in May of 2019, and I stayed at Country Financial as a software engineering intern for a full year, working part-time during the school years and full-time during the first summer that I was there. And if you've done the math, yes, this was a freshman internship, and freshman internships are possible, and we'll talk about this today. What was I up to last summer? I was a software engineering intern at Capital One. It was remote, of course, and I was only there for the summer from May 2020 to August 2020. I've been involved with CS196 since January of 2019. I started off as a project manager, and since last semester, I've been as the instructor, including this semester with Rohan. And I'm currently working with Caterpillar part-time while I'm taking classes, and I'll probably continue working part-time for them until like the end of the school year or so. And for this summer, we'll see. Uh, Still working on getting something. Stay tuned on my LinkedIn or something. I don't know. Who knows where I'll end up. So who was I coming into the University of Illinois? I think this is important to talk about because, I think that we have a lot of questions in the chat here, but they're being answered. Okay. So who was I coming into the University of Illinois? I mean, was I like a programming god? Was I programming since the day I came out of the womb? Uh, Not at all. I was a very small-brained high schooler. Um, I loved public speaking. That's really what I spent all of my time doing in high school, basically. I, did not do anything coding related. I was on the speech team in high school. Um, I had basically zero coding experience, and when I first put together this lecture last semester, I went into the college board and I pulled out this right here, this little screenshot from the college board. I don't really tell many people this. I got a 1 on the AP Computer Science exam, and cut me some slack. My teacher was like exceptionally terrible. I'm not going to be nice about it. She was really bad, so spare me. I'm pretty sure everyone in the class got a 1. Uh, and that's one of the reasons to why I'm very cautious of bad teaching myself. But that's about it. I mean, I was absolutely terrified coming into the school for this fact here. I wasn't really a coding god or something, and coming into a pretty good computer science program, it's very scary to go in with that kind of experience. So I know how many people feel right now. And I'm not really saying this to humble brag or something. I just want to take this as an opportunity to kind of, before we even talk about going into how to get an internship or something, let's kind of dispel these elitist notions right before we even start. Let's dispel all the elitist notions about who gets internships and who doesn't. You're all capable. All it really takes is time, it takes some luck, and it takes hard work. This is all it is. You don't have to be coding since the day you were born. You don't have to be an absolute genius or something. Um, let's just get this out the way now. So, nice to get to know me a little bit more. How do you actually get an internship? Well, let's talk about this a little bit more. Step 0. Do not compare yourself to other people. This is keeping the previous fact in mind. And so, sorry, we have some questions in the chat, but it seems like a lot of people are asking questions that we will be answering later on in the lecture, so stay tuned. But yeah, step 0. Do not compare yourself to other people. Why should you not compare yourself to other people? Well, this is CS at Illinois, and this isn't to be like, gatekeeping about where we are. We're in a great school with a lot of very smart people with a huge variety of experiences, etc. There will be a point in your college career where you know someone that's at Facebook, Apple, Amazon, whatever it is. Put your hand in the bucket of Fortune 100 companies, and I promise you, you will be able to find a student here that is working for them. It is super discouraging to do this. Everyone is capable. It is extremely unhealthy to do this. And let's look at 2 different sides of the coin here. Let's say you feel behind others. Let's say, right now you're kind of coming in, you're not really super experienced, or you don't really think you're all that smart, and you feel you're really behind in this program. When you put people on pedestals, what happens here? You be unnecessarily hard on yourself, and you're limiting what your own capabilities are. But let's look at the other side of the spectrum here. What happens if you feel like you're ahead of others? You're coming into college, you've been programming for a while now, you feel like you've got some good experience here, and you feel really comfortable. If you feel like you're ahead of others, comparing yourself to other people makes you feel the opposite. It makes you feel like there's no real need to work hard, there's no need to grow, there's no need to learn. This is not good either. So instead of trying to compare yourself to other people, Contribute to the culture of collaboration that we have at the school, not competition. Learn from each other, support each other, and put yourself on your own scale. I just wanted to get this out of the way now because I think it's really important, and I feel like I have some sort of responsibility as like one of the instructors for this course, talking to a lot of freshmen to make sure that like the future of CS at Illinois, to make sure it doesn't turn into some elitist, like super annoying group of people. Don't be this way. Collaborate with each other, support each other, because of this next thing that I'm going to talk about now. You're an average of the people that you're around. Surround yourself with people that push you and encourage you, not the other way around. So if there are people that are just like doing the complete opposite here, just get them out of your life. There's no reason to. You want to put yourself in a position to succeed, and you want to be around people that want to see you make that happen. So thanks for the confidence, but where's my internship? I don't see it anywhere. Let's actually get into the real thing here. So let's outline what the typical interview process looks like. First things first is you got the interview. So what does the first step usually look like? Well, it usually looks like a coding challenge. Then after that, you'll have a behavioral interview. Then later on, a technical interview, and then a final round, either on-site or remote. And then finally, you get the offer. And we're going to basically this lecture, every single step of the way, talk about how you can get to the next step and various ways to succeed in every step along the way. Not every interview process is like this, but it follows a very similar structure usually. So, in order to get an internship, you have to do step number one, which is you have to actually get the interview. How can you get an interview? Well, there's various ways to get into the process here. You can apply online. So that means just taking your resume and just applying like crazy. Take your resume and spam it to every company you see. You can get an interview through referrals. If you have friends, connections, family members, whatever it is, these are people that can help you get into the company. Career fair. We host multiple career fairs at the school. We have one in the fall, one in the spring, and then also we have after-hour events, which are basically more casual career fairs. And now, because of coronavirus, they're virtual. And finally, cold emailing recruiters. So we'll talk about every single one of these. So first, we talked about applying online. So what does applying online look like to get the interview? Well, you can do this in a couple different ways, but I would recommend just spamming like crazy. All companies basically ask for the same exact information. It's just like, give us your resume. Are you a veteran? Do you have a disability? And what is your race and ethnicity? Um, and do you need, like, are you a citizen of the country? That's basically every single job application you'll see, with some minor differences here and there. So take your resume and spam it like crazy. You don't really need to worry too much about being qualified or not. Just mindlessly spam your resume. A lot of people ask me about cover letters when I talk about this. My opinion, this is purely my opinion, is I have no idea what you're supposed to do with these cover letters. I'm going to say I've personally stopped bothering with them. I don't think they even read them. Um, so one perspective is that it differentiates you from other applicants because you stand out, you bring your resume to life with a cover letter. My perspective is they probably don't read it. You're saving a lot of time, and if you are trying to optimize and write a cover letter by switching out the company name, then it's obviously not tailored, and I think they can clearly see that. So this is just my opinion. You don't need to, take it for just take it for what it is. Basically, ask various people for their opinions on cover letters, but that's mine. So that's option number one to getting the interview, applying online. Another option is referrals. Referrals are easily the most powerful way of getting an interview at a company. So it basically guarantees you the interview. A person in the company can vouch for you. They can say, this person, I've worked with him on, X team, or I've known him for a long time, him or her, and, she does great work. So you should definitely give her a try. Um, Ask your friends and connections for this. Create a LinkedIn so that way you can actually allow other people to reach out to you, and you can reach out to other people that might have been alumni of the school, or whatever it is. You can get in contact with people this way. And I've actually had recruiters reach out to me on LinkedIn. So like this is something that actually happens. LinkedIn must have it. And let's have a little bit of a referral of how, or a demo of how powerful these referrals are. So Freshman year, I had a professor in linguistics in the spring semester, and I had a course with him. And at the end of the semester, I just basically said like, "Hey, I'm really interested in computational linguistics. I'd like to just talk to you about various things in the field. Not sure if I really like it or not. I would just be interested in talking to you about these things." And so out of nowhere, he just sort of said like, "Sounds great. How about I take you out for lunch? It's my treat. And P.S. Do you want a job?" And so this completely took me by surprise. By this point, I actually already accepted an offer. That was the offer from Country Financial, but this just goes to show how powerful these referrals are. Usually, referrals don't lead to offers straight away, but um, I will say that they will at least guarantee you an interview. So that's just going to show a little bit of how powerful these referrals can be. Third way to actually getting an interview, career fair. Career fair does work. I know people personally who have received interviews and offers from the career fair. I haven't had a whole bunch of success with the career fair, but I can guarantee you it does work and it is worth your time. Tips and tricks for the career fair. Check the companies that are attending on Handshake and make a plan of who you'll see. I will note that career fairs are a little bit different nowadays because of coronavirus. Like everything is virtual, so the way that career fairs happen is slightly different, but the tips are kind of the same. Like make sure you're actually making a plan of what companies you want to talk to beforehand. um, Make sure you go early, even virtually. This is still very important. Even this semester in the virtual career fair, very early in the morning, like the rooms were very quiet, and this is because most people don't go early. So if you go early, you're able to beat the crowds, and you're actually able to actually have some talking time with recruiters. They get very, very crowded, especially in person. The Arc is where they hold the career fair usually, and it just gets extremely, extremely obnoxious. Try to beat the crowds by going early. And most importantly, have a quick pitch for yourself. Prepare, they call it your elevator pitch. And what is an elevator pitch? Well, it's just a fancy way of like saying for 30 or 40 seconds, who are you? What have you done? Why are you actually interested in working for this company? And this is really important because like a lot of people at a career fair, they just sort of like walk up to recruiters and they just sort of stare at them. Don't do this. Like, have something to say, especially because a lot of these recruiters expect you to begin the conversation. If they expect you to begin the conversation, just start off with a pitch. Like, "Hi, I'm Sami Alqadi, computer science linguistics major. I'm graduating in this year. I've worked at X, Y, and Z, here are some projects that I've done where I've worked on X, Y, and Z. I'm interested in your company because of, K, Z, Y, whatever other variables there are. And this is why I want to work for you." So, like, just have a very quick pitch for yourself. Don't just walk up to a recruiter and stare at them awkwardly. Um, so that's the career fair. And the final suggestion that I have for getting the interview is step 4, which I think a lot of people don't really. I think a lot of people don't actually even try. It's cold emailing recruiters. This is somewhat of a last resort tactic, but it does actually have some success rate. I mean, I'm not going to say the success rate is super high. It's actually fairly low, but I think it is worth a shot, especially if you're getting desperate. You basically just send emails to recruiters talking about your experience, and there are some templates that you can follow online, uh, to help you get started on how you should maybe structure one of these cold emails. So don't expect a response from these. Like, if you're lucky, you will get a response. But if you send like 15 cold emails to recruiters, don't expect 15 responses back. Expect zero, maybe one or two if you're lucky. But it's worth a shot. And actually, so here's another little bit of a demo of cold emailing recruiters. This is actually the email that got me the interview to my first internship freshman year. I just basically emailed a recruiter. I said like, "Hey, I'm Sami Alqadi. I'm a computer science linguistics major. This is the project that I did in 196 actually. Working on this project gave me experience with these various things, and I'd love to work for your company. And if an opening is still available, I'd love to chat." I got a response from this. This was one of like 20 cold emails I sent. I got the interview, and I ended up working for this company freshman year all the way until May 2020. So cold emailing recruiters does work, and it is worth a shot, especially as a freshman if you're getting pretty desperate. Like, you are desperate. I was very desperate. So I think all of those are worth a shot. If you are really, really trying to get an interview, go to every career fair you can find, cold email recruiters, spam your resume like crazy. To even positions that don't say they hire freshmen, just do it anyway. Why not? And try to find as many referrals as you can. This is your best shot at at getting an interview. So now we have officially gotten past this little part right here. We are now officially in the first stage of the interview. The first stage of the interview is almost always a coding challenge. What is a coding challenge? Well, it's basically these companies, it's their way of kind of weeding out people before they spend resources interviewing you, because interviewing people does take time, it does take money. They have to hire interviewers. If it's in person, like non-COVID, they have to fly you out sometimes. They have to give you a hotel room, or even the people that they're paying to interview you, whatever it is. It does cost them some amount of money to interview you. So these coding challenges are a great way of just weeding out as many people as possible before they actually spend these resources on you. They're usually 1 to 3 coding problems, usually unproctored, and they're on platforms like websites like HackerRank, which is a very similar environment to what you see on PrairieLearn. It's just a contained environment with a problem and a text editor. So if you pass the coding challenge, you do well on these questions, then that's basically it for the coding challenge. Now you're actually into usually the behavioral interview stage, and that leads me to step 2. Don't fail the behavioral interview. I am a firm believer that you should never ever fail a behavioral interview. What is a behavioral interview? It is their way of evaluating you based on your past experiences to understand the way that you would react to various job related situations. So, this is purely behavioral stuff. It's not technical. They won't really ask you anything about computer science. This is about you as a person. How do you handle certain situations, and what can they expect from you in various situations, right? So, don't fail the behavioral interview. Why do I say this? Why is this like my opinion on this? Well, the questions don't ever change. Like, they are literally always going to be the same exact questions. Tell me about a time when you XYZ. Why do you want to work for us? You can find a bunch of practice questions on Google, and you'll find that they are all really, really similar. Um, so, how do you prepare for these behavioral interviews? Well, I think that you should prepare some general responses to very common questions. Like, you should have a response prepared for the tell me about yourself question, because it's asked literally every single time you have an interview. Tell me about yourself. Like, it's very open ended. If you don't know how to answer it, look online, but you should prepare some responses for these. Like, if you don't know how to answer a question like this, your interviewer is going to be a bit confused because it's so common. Um, and then for your projects, try to prepare some examples for like around 3 different projects that you have. And if you don't have 3 projects that you've done before, 1 or 2, whatever it is. But if you have more than 3 or equal to three projects, and prepare some examples of some challenges that you've faced while working on the project, some mistakes that you've made. What did you enjoy about the project? What are some examples when you took leadership in this project? Team conflict. How did it resolve? How did you handle this team conflict? What would you do differently if you could do this project all over again? And make sure you actually understand your project very well. Be able to discuss the various technical trade-offs, whatever it is, because behavioral interviews are almost always literally just questions about your projects. If they say, tell me about a time when you did X, Y, and Z, you can pull from your little mental flow chart that you've made here and say, well, a time that I had when I took leadership is, when I worked on a project in CS196 and yada, 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 right? So prepare these general questions for these very common scenarios for a couple of your projects, so that way you can pull from them when you have these behavioral interviews. So what are my tips and tricks for the behavioral interview? Uh, First things first, speak with confidence. I mean, like, if you're just sitting there and mumbling and stumbling through your interview, they don't want to listen to you. Like, nobody wants to listen to anyone that talks like that. Try your best, even if you're super nervous, to just be there with them, speak with confidence. What does speaking with confidence let you do? Well, it helps you get away with minor stumbles. Like if you are saying something that you don't fully remember, but you're just like, yep, this happened, you can kind of get through these minor little stumbles that you might have. If it sounds like you don't really know what you're talking about, then they will probably think that you don't know what you're talking about. Uh, talk about what you did. Don't talk about what your team did. This is really important. If they're asking you about like a certain scenario where you did something, tell me about a time when you did this, and you respond with, "Well, my team did this, and my team did that." They're not hiring the team; they are hiring you. What did you do, right? So be very careful not to make this mistake. If you're forced at any point, like you absolutely have to talk about the team, that's fine. But the focus is on you. Don't be arrogant. This is a huge red flag. Interviewers are looking for arrogance. They don't like arrogant people because nobody likes arrogant people. Don't be arrogant when you're talking, in the behavioral interview. But also don't be too humble. Feel free to brag. I mean, this is the time to brag in your interview, but impress them by talking about the impressive work that you did because this is the time to brag. But don't go on about like arrogant things like, I did all of the hard parts of my project or something like that. Stay away from this. If they find that you're arrogant, like you could totally nail the technical interview, you could nail, whatever else it is, but they don't want to hire you if they don't want to work for you. They want to hire people that they want to work with, that they enjoy being around. So avoid setting off these red flags in the interview. And of course, use what is called the STAR structure for your responses. This is the easiest way to go about responding to behavioral interviews, and it will help you a tremendous amount in making sure that you actually answer the question that the person is asking you. And so, what is the STAR structure? It is situation, task, action, and result. So they say, "Tell me about a time when you made an impact on a project." And you say, "Well, in my freshman year in CS196, I had a team project where I worked on." Yada yada yada, and I was tasked with, implementing the front end of this application in React, and I was able to do X, Y, and Z, and as a result, I was able to, you know, do whatever. Like, this is kind of a general structure that you can follow in making sure that you're actually answering the questions that they give you. The star structure is very common, so if you want to see examples of how to follow the star structure, you could just Google it and you will find a large amount of answers on this. Okay. So, also, final thing, ask questions. At the end of an interview, or even throughout, they will want you to ask questions. They will leave time for questions, and you have to ask questions. Like, if at the end of an interview they say, any questions for me, and you say, nope, thank you very much, it is very likely that you didn't do well in that behavioral interview, because that is like a big problem if you don't have any questions for them. Talk to your interviewer like they're a human. Don't be too stiff. So, like what that means is make sure for one you actually research the company beforehand. I've heard way too many stories of people who go into these behavioral interviews and someone like the interviewer asks them like, well, why do you want to work for this company, or what is your favorite, what really stuck out to you about this company, and they're just sort of staring at them like, I've had people that I know interview for companies that they didn't even know what they did. Like they just found them on a job board, got an interview and did it, and they were totally speechless in the behavioral interview. Don't do this. Research the company. Um, so what that allows you to do, let me get my camera out of the way. What that allows you to do is actually ask some questions like day-to-day life at the company, questions that stem off of your research, questions about like what they have within the disciplines that you're interested in. So if you're particularly interested in machine learning and you want to know the kind of opportunities that this company has for machine learning, this is a great question to ask in the interview. If you're curious about like how certain inter company relations are, how does technology work with the business side of things in this company, things like this, ask some questions about what you're genuinely interested in, so that way it shows the interviewer that you actually did take the time to look into the company and what they do, and that you're actually interested in what they have to say. And finally, show that you're coachable. This is an internship. You are there to learn. So don't, this goes back to the arrogance thing. Like, show that you are just a college student that is, somewhat just curious to learn and to broaden their understanding of about software engineering, computer science, whatever it is. Okay, so now that we have passed the coding challenge and the behavioral interview, we are now in the infamous technical interview stage. So that leads me to step 3, which is crush the coding interview. What is the coding interview? Well, here you're usually interviewed by a technical member of the company. So this is like a senior software engineer, or maybe just like a software engineer that's been there for a couple years. And here is where you will be given a problem, sometimes more than one, and you need to do your best to solve it efficiently and correctly while explaining your thoughts and decisions throughout. So out loud, like what's your thought process? How are you working through this question? And so what kind of problems are we talking about? Um, I highly recommend you use leetcode.com. This is an excellent database of problems that have been asked before in real life technical interviews. There's over 1,000 questions on there, and companies, even the large companies, like pull questions directly from this website. So I highly recommend you do it for practice and you do it to prepare for certain companies. Like, this is where they get the questions, and this is the best source of practice that you can find. So let's look at some examples. Well, these questions can range from really easy to really hard. Here's an example of an easy question. Reverse a string. You're given a string, return the reverse of it. And, you know, this is something that many people could probably solve like freshman year with only taking CS125. But they can get a little bit harder. So like here is an example of a medium level problem. The cheapest flights within K stops. You have a graph data structure, which is something that you won't learn until 225 or 173, and you have to find, with a graph representing cities, what is the cheapest way to get from A to B with K stops. And here's a little bit of a harder problem. Given a 2D binary matrix filled with zeros and ones, find the largest rectangle containing only ones and return its area. Um, this looks really stupid to some of you. Like, this looks really dumb. It doesn't look like anything you'll ever have to do in a job, and it'll make you wonder why they're interviewing you like that. Um, I won't be the first person to tell you this, but technical interviewing is a skill that is mostly independent from software engineering, and you can get better at it through a lot of practice and repetition. It's not really like you're gonna go into a job and they're gonna have you check if a string is a palindrome. It's more like this is how they interview you, and when you get on the job, you're gonna be working on like writing an API or something. They're fairly separate, and it's kind of just like the reality that we have to face until they find a better way of interviewing us. So how do you get good at these technical interviews? Well, first things first, I would say get comfortable with the language that you will use during these interviews, and you can use whatever programming language that you want. So if you really, really like C++, you can use C++ in your interview. I personally prefer higher level languages like Python. I think that they're great for interviewing because they abstract away a lot of like things that might be kind of annoying in other languages. Like, I had an interview once where, the overall focus of the interview wasn't this, but one part of the question was being able to check if one date string came before another date string, like if one date was before another date on the calendar. That's not like necessarily a trivial thing to write if you wanted to write that from scratch. But in a high level language like Python, I was able to literally just say string 1 and string 2 and just put the less than symbol in the middle, and that did what I wanted. It was great. If I had to write this in like C or C++, it would be a little bit more non trivial to do that. But again, just use whatever you're most comfortable with. If you're most comfortable with Java, use Java. Don't try to use Python if you don't know Python. Practice, 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 practice. You will eventually develop better pattern recognition, and there are some classes that you can take that will help you with some of the foundational knowledge in these coding interview problems. This is CS225, which is data structures, CS374, which is algorithms, and CS241, which is systems. And these classes will generally help you with the foundational knowledge that you'll see. And don't get me wrong, you can still practice and get internships without these classes. Like, they are by no means a requirement, but they will help you with the foundational knowledge. And finally, don't give up. It takes some time to wrap your head around these technical interview problems. Eventually, problems that stumped you will become a breeze. Like, there are problems that I look at from freshman year that totally just stumped me. And I looked at the solution to the problems and I was like, how would anyone be able to look at this problem and get the solution to it in like a 20 to 40-minute technical interview? It's crazy to me. And then I look back at that problem sophomore year and it is just a total breeze. But there were problems sophomore year that stumped me. And I look back at them now and I'm like, I can implement this in 2 minutes. So don't give up. Give it time. You'll be able to wrap your head around it with a lot of practice, and I promise. Don't think that this will be the death of you or the end of you. So here's a general approach to tackling these technical interview problems. First things first, understand what the question is saying. Uh, this is like obvious, right? You have to understand what the question is saying, but sometimes this can really take a second. Some of them can be a bit convoluted, some of them can be a bit complicated right out of the gate. Just give it a second, really understand what the question is saying, and if you have an interviewer, feel free to ask the interviewer questions. They are there to help you. Try some examples. So this will help you understand the problem more. Identify edge cases, and it'll maybe even help you trigger your pattern recognition. If you give the problem some examples or look at some of the examples in like the problem write-up, you'll be able to see like, oh, I've kind of done a problem like this before, or you'll be able to say, oh, later down the line, I'll probably want to handle this edge case. That seems like something that will give me some issues. And before you really like, especially when you're not like a super experienced technical interviewer, try not to think about the best solution first. Try to think about just what will get the job done. What is a brute force solution? And this is usually the really inefficient, bad solution. And in some interviews, this is fine. Like in some problems, in some companies, in some interviews, the brute force solution is enough. But from there, once you actually have that, you can from there then look for improvements and try to develop a better algorithm to solve the problem. Once you have this, code up your idea, test your idea to make sure that it actually works, and analyze your idea. You will learn how to analyze like the efficiency and the runtime of algorithms once you learn Big O notation. 125 covers it. But this is something that you'll want to do at the very end. Like, my algorithm runs in this time, it uses this much memory, and this is likely the best solution, or maybe we can improve on certain things, etc. More tips for the technical interview. Do not stay quiet. Think out loud. They want to hear your thoughts. They want to hear what you're thinking, and they want to hear how you're solving through this problem. Don't like so interviewers are there to help you. Ask them some clarifying questions. If you are stuck on something, they're there to help you. They also can sometimes give you hints. Sometimes you'll have a mean interviewer. Like, I'm not gonna say that they're all super nice and collaborative. You will have some mean interviewers, but most of the time they're there to help you. You can ask them clarifying questions. They can maybe give you some hints to kind of kick you in the right direction, or sometimes move you away from the wrong direction, etc. Listen to what they're saying because sometimes they might be hinting at something. And the reason why this is because you can kind of think about it as like a simulation of what it would be like when you're working on the job. They want to see, again, like we talked about earlier, they want to see that you're coachable, they want to see that you're capable of collaboration. They don't want to see heads down coding, because at a real job, you're not just heads down coding. It's not like you're in a cubicle with your, head and shoulders really, tight on your computer. That's not happening. Um, it's very open, very collaborative. People are talking to each other. There's pair programming sometimes. There's a lot of collaboration that goes on in a software engineering job or any sort of coding job. And so in an interview, they want to see that you're capable of doing these things. They want to see that you're capable of thinking out loud, that you're able to collaborate with the interviewer on certain ideas and certain approaches, etc. So no heads down coding. Try to stay away from this. And sometimes you don't need to be perfect on the problem. Depending on the problem, some of them are really hard, and you don't need to get the most efficient, fastest solution right away in a 30-minute interview. Sometimes brute force solution is totally fine, and sometimes no solution is okay. Like, it really depends on the problem, the interviewer, and the company. And what that means is just do your absolute best. Even if it seems like you're not close to the solution or you have no idea what you're doing, try your best. Don't give up. See what happens. Like, halfway through the interview, don't just say, "Oh, I don't know how to do this problem. Sorry." Keep going. Give your best shot. Keep on thinking out loud. Maybe you'll find something. Maybe you won't. Maybe you'll find something that isn't the best. That's fine. Just do your best. See what happens. You never know. So step 4, putting it all together. This is the final stretch. You made it through the coding challenge, you made it through the behavioral, you made it through the technical. What does the final round look like? This is usually a combination of more behavioral interviews and more technical interviews. And so some companies will fly you out. They'll put you in an awesome hotel room. They'll treat you like royalty. Of course, everything is virtual at the moment, so that's not going to be happening. But some companies will just do it over Skype, like even in normal times. So, like, a year or two from now, whenever a vaccine is fully distributed, like, this is what you can expect from an in-person interview. And some companies will just do it over Skype, Zoom, or whatever other video conferencing service. And also, another thing is that some of these technical interviews might be over whiteboard. You won't always have a compiler at your disposal. Sometimes you literally have to write out code on a whiteboard or on a pen and paper. So, or sometimes you'll write code into a like this Google. I'm pretty sure literally has you write code in a Google Doc. Some companies have you write code into a text editor, but they don't have any test cases that you can run. And the reason why they do this is because they want to see that you're not like super dependent on a compiler, or that you're not just like spamming test cases to see if you get things right. This is nice for them to be able to see like you're capable of thinking about edge cases, you're capable of actually verifying if code works yourself, and that you're not like, you won't have any syntax color highlighting or syntax suggestions, things like that. So this is their way of kind of testing you on those things. So now we have officially made it through the process. So we are here now. We have made it through the long and grueling process, and you have an offer. Congratulations. What does that mean? If you accept, you're locked in. And what does that mean? Well, if you sign off on the offer, that means you're working there for that summer or for that time period, and they don't expect you to accept an offer from another company. Unless you do what's called reneging. Reneging is when you accept an offer from one company and then you continue interviewing and you accept an offer from another company and you tell the original company, hey, sorry, that offer that I accepted, it ain't gonna happen. I'm actually working somewhere else. This is called reneging. Don't do it. It's bad. And there's various reasons why it's bad. You'll hear some stories of people who reneged a company and they like got blacklisted from a bunch of other companies because companies do talk to each other. There are some stories of people who reneged and nothing happened to them. Personally, I just don't really think it's worth it, and I don't really think it's something that's worth the risk because there are some stories that are horrifying and there are some stories that are totally benign. Just kind of proceed if, proceed at your own caution if you want to renege. But my suggestion is don't do it. Now, if you're in the process for other places and you have this offer that you haven't accepted yet, usually you can leverage this offer to either get more time to decide from your current company or tell other companies, hey, I have an offer that's going to expire in 2 weeks. I'm going to need you to speed up my interview process. Please, I need that. This is better than reneging. Try to avoid reneging and try to never do it. Instead, use this offer as leverage. And of course, stay humble. Uh, you know, I shouldn't really have to say this, but like, if you got an offer, don't just like go around and, be super annoying about it. Just like be humble, be happy for yourself. People will be happy for you. Don't worry. You're not better than people for getting it, just more like, you know, congratulations, right? So what about rejection? I got rejected, Sammy. What do I do? You didn't talk about rejection all lecture. Well, rejection's normal. It's totally normal. It's a part of the process, and it is 100% something that you will experience a lot. I would estimate that since freshman year, I've been rejected from internships about 300 times or so, and I think I'm pretty sure if I'm calculating it right, I've only had like 5 offers to show for them. This is the side of things that many people don't really talk about. Like if you go on LinkedIn or something, you'll just see like offer from Facebook, offer from Google, I'm interning here, I'm interning there, but nobody really talks about the process that it took for them to get to that point. And oftentimes, the process that it took for them to get to that point is a whole hell of a lot of rejection. Um, so keep on trying. The opportunity will come, I promise. This is the like blessing that we have as people that are working in this field. There are a lot there is a lot of opportunity. If you are a software engineer, data scientist, like many of the things that stem down from computer science, like if you walk into the career fair, you have so many opportunities and so many companies that are hiring people in tech. So what that means is take advantage of this. Apply to hundreds of companies because you can. Why not? We are so privileged in this field to be able to do this, so take advantage of it. Take your resume, apply to a bunch of places. There is zero harm in doing this, and it's a numbers game. Eventually you will have some offers to show for them. But don't get caught up over rejection. It's going to happen over and over again. Don't let it discourage you. It happens. So here's a little bit of a bonus. If it wasn't a no reply email, like if you got rejected from a company and it was a recruiter that told you about the rejection, or if it was anything but a no reply email, um, you are now in touch with a recruiter. So be respectful. Tell them like thanks for the opportunity, even though it didn't work out this year. Stay in touch for another shot next year. This is a great connection to have. Don't just like burn the bridge because you failed their interview or something. Stay in touch. Tell them that, this is something that you're still interested in for the next year or the next semester, whatever it is. This is a great connection to have. So what are the types of rejection? As a freshman, you will likely have a lot of resume rejections, and that is totally normal. Um, this is likely what you will experience the most of. You will also have rejections after interviews. So, you interviewed, you didn't do too great, and you got rejected. Another option is just flat out ghosting. You just never hear back from the company. And if you get ghosted, most of the time it means rejection, but you can still kind of follow up with a recruiter, say like, hey, I interviewed at this point, or hey, I applied like a month ago. Yeah, I'm still really interested, stuff like that. And of course, this is something that a lot of people actually don't realize is that these spots are limited. There are not infinite amounts of positions at internships. So spots fill up. Interview season starts around like August, maybe even earlier than that. And some companies only have like 50 spots that they're trying to fill. So the longer that you wait to apply, the longer that you wait to interview, the harder it's going to get because spots do fill up. And I know some people that passed interviews and they were in the process for a company, but they had no spots remaining and they just got rejected off of that. So be wary of this. They don't have infinite seats or infinite paychecks that they can give to people. These are some things that you should know about. Very, very important. There are freshman and sophomore programs. So these are programs that big companies have specifically for freshmen and sophomores. Apply to them because there is no harm to it and they are built for people like you, limited experience and freshmen, sophomores. This is Google Step, Facebook University, Microsoft Explorer. Throw an application at them. Why not? Research Park. If it's anything you take from this lecture, it is this Research Park. At the University of Illinois, we have Research Park, which is basically like right off campus, slightly on campus. We have Research Park, hundreds of companies, the likes of Yahoo, Caterpillar, Capital One, Amarin, CME Group, Country Financial, State Farm is there. There's so many of these large companies, and the only other people that are applying to these companies are UIUC students. They are very accepting of freshmen, sophomore, and of course juniors, and they usually don't ask technical questions. So this is an awesome opportunity. a lot of the people that I know, their first or second internships were just at Research Park, and the companies are still really good. They are Fortune 100 companies, they are top companies, and they are awesome opportunities to work for. You can work for them during the summer, you can work for them part-time during the school year. This is an awesome opportunity. Go onto their job board, make sure you keep an eye on it and apply periodically and try to get a position there for sure. And of course, there are more than just summer internships. If you have a semester to blow, you can take some time off to do one in the spring or the fall, concurrently with school if you're remote or at Research Park. So some people take semesters off and do co-ops or internships full time. Some people like me, I do part time as an intern. So this is a great opportunity to have. Miscellaneous resume tips. Make sure you put your GPA on it, and usually the threshold is like 3 and above. Just put it on your resume. But if you don't want to, just leave it off. Like barely any companies ask for GPA. This is also really important. Put your graduation end date instead of the start date. If you have like 50 credit hours coming in as a freshman or whatever it is, and you're like sophomore junior status, don't say that because they don't care. But what they do care about is if you are planning on graduating early. Because being a junior by credit hours means nothing unless you are actually planning on graduating early. Because, like I said at the start of the lecture, their main goal is to hire you full time. So that is why it's so difficult as a freshman to get an internship. You are so far out from graduation, and that's why it's easiest for a junior. But if you are closer to graduation, make sure you mention that. Make sure you do say that you are graduating a semester or a year early, because it will benefit you. If you have no experience, get experience. You don't have to have a job to have experience. Get some projects on your resume. Do some hackathons. Take this class. Put your 196 resume on your 196 project on your resume. Do research. Email some professors if you're interested in research. I've never done it personally, but I know a lot of people. I know Rohan has done some research himself. Like, just get experience if you don't have experience. You don't need to have internship experience to be able to talk about things in your behavioral interviews and on your resume. That is it for my lecture today. That was all the slides that I have. We finished right on time. Feel free to ask a bunch of questions in the Discord chat. Essentially, everyone on our staff has had an internship before. There are some people that just have extensive project experience, but many people on our staff have interned at somewhere before. So, like, feel free to ask us questions. We've been there before. We've done it ourselves, and I can answer some questions right now. So, how would a research